Hello and welcome back to the second part of this mini maintenance series from Cycle Training Wales in partnership with Blaenau Gwent Youth Service. Today we're going to look at taking a wheel on and off, something you obviously got to do when you're changing a tyre or repairing a puncture, putting a new inner tube, things like that. Okay, so first of all, the easiest position to do this in is to turn the bike upside down. There's a couple of things we want to do before we turn it upside down. The bike's going to be balancing on the seat and the handlebars. Therefore, if you have anything on the handlebars, like lights, bell, computer, we want to make sure we either can remove those or just twist them out of the way, so we've got a nice flat surface for the bike to balance on, and that we don't break the light or the reflector or the computer. Next thing, we want to make sure we're in the highest gear. So if you've got gears, that's going to be the big cog in the front there. So I'm lifting the bike up, change the gears, I'm in the big cog at the front and the small cog in the back. If you've got numbers, it will be 3 on this side and sort of 6, 7 or 8 on this side. So we're in the highest gear, so the chain is away from the wheel. The other thing we're going to have to do, and that's only if you've got V brakes like this, you're going to have to release the brakes. Okay, so that's pulling these brake arms together and taking this part out called the noodle. So we've released the brakes there. Okay, and the rear, same thing, release the brakes. Obviously, if you've got disc brakes, you don't need to do that because the wheel will come out nice and smoothly. We have to release these brakes because if we don't, the actual wheel won't come out. Okay, so we cleared the handlebars, we've got in the top gear, and we've released our brakes if we have V brakes. Next thing, we're going to turn the bike upside down. So the way I'm going to do that is put one foot behind the other, lean down as far as I can to reach the front forks here and the rear of the bike, and all I'm doing is flipping the bike over. I'm not lifting it, I'm just flipping it over. I'll do that again when we go back. What I'm doing is stepping back, flipping the bike over. Reach down, flip the bike over. Okay, so next we'll start with the front wheel, fairly straightforward. I'll start by explaining the quick release. We talked about that last time, so release the quick release and then unscrew here. We don't want to take this off because there's little springs in there that will fly off somewhere. So we do it just enough, just enough until the wheel pulls out. So the front wheel's fairly straightforward, okay? So putting it back in, goes into its slots. Make sure the wheel's nice and straight in the frame, and we do that up. And remember, from the M check, we want to do it tight enough until this lever stops with no pressure at all at 90 degrees there, and then we just use our palm to close that up. We always want to make sure that lever's closed. Wheel spinning smoothly, nice and straight in the frame. Okay, now the rear wheel is what people struggle with, or at least get really filthy hands because of the chain. So we want to avoid touching the chain as much as we can. And if ever I do need to touch the chain, try and just use your little finger to minimise the amount of grease we get on our hands. So like the front, I'm pulling open that quick release, loosening it off there, a few turns. Again, not taking the cap off, I'm just loosening it enough so the wheel's going to come out. And I need to get this derailleur out the way, so I'm putting my thumb behind the derailleur, pulling it right back, and then the wheel just comes out like so. Didn't touch the chain, okay? Putting the wheel back in, I need to get these cogs back inside that loop of the chain. So I've just rested the wheel there on the front. I'm going to use my little finger and just place the chain there on the small cog, because I know I'm in the top gear. And again, push the derailleur out the way, slide the wheel down and into its slots there, making sure your wheel's nice and straight in the frame. Again, if you've got disc brakes, just be very careful in sliding that disc back in between the pads. Okay, and the same as the front, I'm doing that up until just move it around there so you can see it, until that lever stops at 90 degrees, and using my palm to close it up. And again, I've really made sure that that wheel is nice and straight in the frame. I'm going to flip the bike back over, lean right down, flip back, And do remember, if you release the brakes, put the brakes back on before you cycle off. So it's a little bit fiddly, this job. I've got to pull the brake arms together and fit that noodle back in the housing like so. So you go in with the front, pull those together, make sure that housing's nice and firm in the front there, like so. Okay. Just quickly before we finish, say a word about if you've got a bike with bolts and not quick release, you'll need a 15mm spanner to undo the bolts rather than a quick release. And when you come to put the wheel back on, make sure you tighten one side a bit, then the other. One side a bit, then the other. Don't do one side completely, because it'll make the wheel move and it won't go in straight. And always make sure when you're putting those wheels back in that they're nice and straight. Okay? Okay, thanks for listening, and look forward to seeing you again in part 3.